Oh, hi! Sorry, that is terrible.
That is really...
It was really, really terrible, but, having grown up watching so many stuff like that, you just have to do it at least once. So I'm sure you'll forgive me. Welcome back again to episode 8 of Maybe Movies. My name's Max, and this
I am Sam.
torment in my life to come around and talk about movies. Anyone would think it was my idea, but it's,
You know you love me, really.
Thank you again for joining us. Most importantly for us, we'd like to just raise our glasses and hope you'll join us as well if you can, to say happy birthday to Zadram, which is 4 years old today.
Happy birthday!
Yay! So thank you, and again, thank you for stopping by. Of course, if you tuned in last week, then you'll know we have a giveaway running at the moment to celebrate our 4th birthday. So if you are a subscriber, ping us an email or your email address, and you'll get entered into a draw at the end of the month to win one or two of our print books at the moment. See last episode for more details, or see the description as well. And that's about it. That's something about all I need to say to begin with, because I want to jump straight back in if we can.
Cool, because it's Halloween time and we got a scary movie to talk about.
We do.
Let's do this.
Yes. So again, if you were here last week, you'll know that this month's 2 films are The Witch and Colour Out of Space. And we've started looking at how the meteor from Colour Out of Space would fare in New England in 1630.
Oh, you got the date. Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay.
It does say the film.
And it was the 1600s, early in the 1600s,
Yeah.
but yeah. Wow, okay. Yeah, all right.
So we were up to, the fish, wasn't it?
The fish by
in
the
river.
river, yes, yes.
The next scene in Colour Out of Space
Yes.
would be the scene in the evening after the press had been.
That's right, yes, and he's ranting.
Yes. And
He's ranting.
And as we'd established last time, the way we've worked with that in this version is that there is a meeting between William, our wild man Ezra,
Yes.
and also a third party from outside of their sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the trader, whatever it
And
is.
the upshot of their meeting leaves William with kind of wounded pride.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And he's raving about that to a
Yeah.
degree. Again, we know that from what we know of the character in the original film, that wouldn't be the case because he is still a very reserved man. He's very decisive in
Yes, yeah.
in what he says. Not so much that he's decisive that he knows what he's doing, but his mannerism.
Yeah, you see, this comes back to what I think we were talking about earlier on, where his chopping of wood.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine him ranting as he chops wood.
Rather than ranting at a person.
Yes, and we have to remember as well that his actions now are being exacerbated by the effect of the colour.
Yeah, of course.
So while it may not hold, just for people at home, because they may not think, well, you're changing the character too much. Well, we're not, because we have to allow the fact that...
Oh, no, it's very clear that the colour affects people
Yes.
as well as things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this is how it's affecting him.
Yeah.
Which I think, that's the one thing I didn't check, and I normally do, because I'm normally good with actors. The actor who plays him.
William.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, gosh. Something Richardson.
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
And seeing him...
I've seen him in a few other things, mostly British television. So for you guys in the States, you probably won't have seen too much of him. But he has done a fair bit of British television, and his voice
has always been a very impressive thing.
It resonates, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's a bit like Clooney in that he's got this physicality, but so much of his performance comes from his voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so seeing him be allowed to do this in a film, because we know,
stretch his legs, as it were.
yes, because we know Nicolas Cage can
Oh yeah,
cut loose, and that's fine.
That was the thing. Watching the film again,
As always, I enjoy it, but it was one of those moments when clearly the director said, "Okay, buddy, you know what to do next. Just do your thing."
Yes,
And he does. There are several scenes where he just does his thing.
and they are.
I can believe that he probably didn't even have any direction on those things. He just went for it.
Yeah.
But of course.
But also with that, because I think we talked about it before, not here, but saying before that they pitch it just right with how restrained he is as well
Yes.
when he needs to be. But and I think, but again, as we said before, you don't hire Nicolas Cage for restraint.
No, you do not. No, you don't.
But of course, we're talking about a different character. See, I mean, it still works. You know, they're different characters, but the nature of their character causes similar effects.
I am going to call a tangent on that.
Yeah, that probably was a tangent. Yeah, it probably
It's
was.
not as bad as episode 6, which I think gets up to about 3. Was it 3 or 4? I can't remember.
Goodness knows, I don't know. I lost count. But Nicolas Cage, his character Nathan, he is chill. He's a '60s child.
Mhm.
He's very mellow, but eventually loses his shit.
William is a pious man and knows that any excessive emotion is ungodly.
Yes.
And so he behaves in a stoic fashion and appears to be zen until he loses his shit.
Yeah.
So they've got different approaches, but their effect is very similar
Yes.
on the characters. So I can see that playing out in very similar ways. Very
And-
similar ways.
Yeah, and this would be, and for him, it would certainly be him talking to God.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's an interesting point. Because obviously there's a big thing about William chopping wood, but it's almost, now you made me think of it, it's almost as if it's his way of praying.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Because the rest of the time he prays for things that are sort of like for effect.
Mhm.
Like, you know, saying grace and things like that. You know, they're ritualistic. But his actual prayers, his individual heartfelt prayers, I think come in those moments when he's
When he's doing that, yeah.
contemplating the block. Yeah.
But I like that idea of. I mean, it's. I don't know if it would work because of the wood that he's chopping is dead. It's
Also-
been cut down, so I don't know if it would be infected by the colour.
No. Oh, yes. No, I see. You're going back to what you were saying earlier on about it
Yes.
possibly being
Yeah.
a moment when he sees the iridescence.
No, he can.
Was that?
If the logs have been there for a while, any kind of it would be in the moisture on the logs.
The moisture in the
It
air.
would be on
Yeah,
the
of course.
lichen on the logs. and
Yeah,
things
Of
like
course
that.
it would. So yes.
So yeah,
Yes, you're right.
potentially, yeah.
Yep, you have got a perfectly good point there. Yeah.
And because because of the effect that it has, nobody ever seems to notice it.
No.
It's going on. And
No, of course
yeah.
not.
It's
Well,
just
especially
assumed
like
by
at this moment, he's in a moment of meditation and he's like praying to God,
Mhm.
but there's some part of him who's observing it but not taking it in.
You know, we've got on. This is. I'm sorry. This is now too tangential. That.
I don't think this is a
No, it
tangent.
is. It is because this isn't the scene that we were dealing with. We've strayed onto him chopping wood.
Because
Oh,
that's
no.
the scene. It's the scene.
Yes.
But also, I think it's easy for us to overlook, of course, is that their
Yes,
situation is a little bit more dire than the gardener's situation.
Yes.
Their crop is failing. They are
Mhm.
hungry.
Yeah.
You know. So it's on top of everything else that's happening around him.
That's true.
But all right, so yes, so he's ranting to the chopping block.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the family are inside the cabin.
You can see how this scene works
Okay.
as a parallel to the scene that it's replacing.
Yes.
He's outside chopping wood. That's his way of venting it, and we see that. We see him, and we see again the colour of the colour and the moisture and everything like that affecting his brain.
Yes.
Possibly every now and again stopping to scratch because his
That's of
starting
course.
to calcify, isn't
Yeah,
it?
of course it is, yes.
And then you go inside the house, and Catherine's preparing dinner.
Yes.
And silence in the house, and all you can hear is the sound of the chopping of the wood from outside.
Yes.
Oh, yes, and how that reflects.
Yes.
Yes, I see it.
I imagine it in this case being, I know it's Jack in the original, but in this case I see it's, again, Thomason trying to keep the twins under control,
Yes.
and Caleb going up to, don't Mum,
Yes.
you know, you're all right.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
which also at this point as well, there's another parallel between the two films.
What's that?
Eggs.
Oh, yes.
Yes. That's right. Thomason finds the egg and then she drops it and it's got the baby and yeah, absolutely. Yes. It does so reflect it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, it works better the more I think about it. Yep.
And that's when that happens, and then one will have to go outside and get
Which,
Dad.
you know, of course, is a metaphor for the potential of new life being destroyed.
And in both stories that applies.
Mm-hmm. Whereas in this one, it's the failed mutation.
Yeah.
And again, it's perfect. It's a lovely synergy.
Yeah, I like it. That does actually really bring it just how close those stories have thematically within them. Yeah, nice. I like it. Okay, so yes, and so then Caleb shouts out, "Father, Father, come quick!"
Yes, runs out and gets him.
Yeah.
And again, that cuts quite quickly to them leaving.
Now you see, this is where things get tricksy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they have a horse. They could theoretically both ride to town.
Mm-hmm.
But it would mean leaving the children for 2 days.
Because he says specifically it will take him 2 days to get to town and back in the film when he does think about leaving to find a husband for Thomasin. So we know that. It's a 2-day journey.
So my thoughts on that were that they don't... See, if we link this back into the scene earlier when they first met Ezra and he patched up his eye after this gunshot. He's close. We would need to. They would need to have some general idea of where he is.
We need to feed into those earlier scenes that Ezra's got some ability of tending to wounds or difficult situations. But yes, and he's much closer, and that's much less scary, and much more likely that parents would be willing to leave their children for that long.
Yes.
So. Yeah, I buy that. I can buy that. Yes, I can buy that. I'm thinking of leaving children for 2 days with no parents was a bit much, but yeah, a few hours up the trail, up the valley.
So they would have to have some idea of where he is.
Yes, they would.
Because, and again, it works from the original film.
But maybe that comes back to the first scene when he first meets and he's like, up the valley that way.
So yeah, when he comes to treat them, he has to take them to where he is.
Yeah.
To treat him because his medicines are there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he knows where he is. He can get there, even if it's at night. They'll take a light with them or whatever. Mm-hmm. They trust the kids to look after the twins.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they do leave them in their charge. So yeah. And again, that plays out as well. Make sure the goats are back in by this time.
Yeah, of course, yes. Yeah.
And off they go. Obviously, they're not going to be able to replace the fingers, but they can.
Yeah, they, I don't know, stitch her up, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And then it goes to the next. Is it? Because it gets a bit weird. Time goes very strange here. Because again, Benny mentions it, doesn't he? The time goes a bit strange.
He does. He says it specifically.
Oh. What?
Oh.
See, riding out to see Ezra.
That's it.
Getting stitched up.
That's where we were, yes. Because they leave at night, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the next night when they get back.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the next... See, now this is where we do run into a problem.
What's that?
Because the next day, the things that can happen. Well, I suppose it's not really a problem. Because during that day, Ward comes to visit, doesn't he, in the original film, and observes what's happening, and that's when he steps out of until almost the end.
Ah,
But
right.
he can't do
yes.
that because Ezra's filling his role, but he can't be there because he's with mum and dad. But that's fine because we don't need to have that in there.
Maybe he comes back with them, sees them safely home.
Or does that
That's-
cause problems, do you think?
It changes the dynamic because when Ward visits us during the day and it's just the kids there.
Yes, that is a problem.
Because
It is a
again,
problem, yes.
it is a
No.
problem
So
because
we need him in two places at once.
we need him in two places at once, but it also changes. It doesn't. It doesn't change his role, his action within the film as the character of Ezra. But it does change his role in the film as the character of Ward,
Yes.
or what that character symbolises. He's now a lot more involved directly. Ward's always a bit of an outsider. He's the audience. He's the outside observer on the
Yeah,
action.
but he's there to warn them, isn't
Yeah. And I don't want to bring in anybody else like bring in a tinkerer or anything like that.
I was just pondering that in my head, but it just makes things complicated and it breaks down the nature of Ezra as the witness.
we're doing too much to suit what we're doing, which is not what we wanted to be doing.
All right, so maybe they do need to go to town. Maybe they just have to. It slightly extends the timeline by like maybe a day, but for Ezra to maintain his role, he needs to be there when the parents aren't there. So maybe they do have to go to town. Maybe Ezra doesn't have those skills. Maybe they simply have no choice. I mean, we're looking on these things with 20th century sensibilities for stars.
Yes. No, that would make more sense. Yes, because it then means that we can spread out the events that happen in a day in kind of outer space.
Would be more like a day and a half.
Yeah, in a day and a half. They happen more gradually.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to another question, which is something we didn't address earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How much of what it does and how it affects things is predetermined by its understanding of human technology, because it makes use of it. In a low-tech environment, would it develop differently?
That's a good point. I mean, certainly in the original story, the events took place over months.
And that was set in the 30s, wasn't it?
I think it was before then. It was maybe like the turn of the century. I think it was.
Oh, the story.
It was
written
when
in
he was a
30s,
young
yes,
man,
yes.
written in the
Yeah.
20s or 30s, but he was talking about when he was a young man.
Okay.
So it was like the turn of the century or something.
Again, a lower tech level.
Much lower tech level, but the events he described, I think he described visiting the place 3 times in the space of a year. In the original story, so it's a very much extended timeline. Lovecraft allowed time for things to naturally occur,
Yes,
whereas the
film-
narrative of the films are much more compact.
of course they are. Yes,
But
and we're dealing with a film, so
yeah, but what I do think is that it does suggest to us that we're only constraining ourselves because of the original timeline of the film, whereas actually this can take any amount of time that we need it to take.
it can. And we'd also accept that because the makers of the film paid such attention to the source material, that it would have had an influence and an impact on how they developed the narrative.
Yeah.
What elements they wanted to include, even if they are truncated.
Yes.
So we can allow for that they would want to include something like that in this version.
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
extend it over the
Yeah.
timeline.
You know, so it
That's-
still makes sense.
yeah.
Everything still works, which is what we need. It needs to function.
So
And
here again, and again, it does work because it allows within those 2 days that they've gone for to get into the crops. So when he comes back, the bumper crop.
Yes. Oh, yes. It would a couple of days. That's plenty of time for it to get into the
Yes.
system. It's believable then, because we could even see over the passage of that day and a half or 2 days,
Yeah.
in the background, we'd suddenly see the colour seeping in to various aspects
Yeah.
and becoming strong. And so instead of like suddenly going to a scene that was perfectly normal before, and suddenly the colour everywhere, it would be gradual because it would be over a more extended period of time.
And we'd see, obviously, you wouldn't get Caleb walking the goats, but they'd be out and about. Because during that day or those couple of days, there's a scene, isn't there, of Benny walking the
Yes.
alpacas and stuff like that.
But the goats are famous for getting out of their pen all the time
Yes, they are.
in the original timeline.
Mhm.
Now, I know some of that is theoretically because it's blackfellow, but goats are famous for doing stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Famous, they're very smart animals. So maybe instead of him having to walk them, he's just having to put them back in their pen because they keep getting out.
Mm-hmm.
So you still got the same dynamic of him needing to do something,
Yeah.
but it won't be because he has to walk them. It's because he's got to get them back in their pen because they've gotten out again.
You could even, if you could even have him going out hunting.
We could. I mean, he does try to do that at one point, doesn't he, on his own? Tries to go off in the woods, and that's when Thomasin insists on going with him, and it all goes pear-shaped.
Yeah.
But yes, he has that willfulness, that bravado. He might attempt to hunt for the family, with nobody to tell him no, with no mother to tell him he can't fire the gun.
So, do we want to throw in then, if we're doing that, he goes out into the woods hunting, that's when
that's when he gets lost.
No, that's when they lose Fowler.
Oh.
We've missed something again, we've missed the lightning storm.
We missed the lightning storm because we were so focused on the other part of that.
Yes, which I think we had mentioned earlier, off camera, sorry. But
yeah, sorry.
We had mentioned earlier that would happen probably as the build up to the log chopping scene leading up to losing the fingers.
Yes.
That happens that night.
Yes.
That happens first.
Yes, it should be happening in the back as the backdrop to all of that.
I mean, that could
happening.
that could even be that could be the catalyst on top of everything that's happened that day for William that sends him out chopping wood.
Mm-hmm.
You see this thing, lightning striking in the same place 3 times.
At least that.
I just remember
like a dozen times.
Yeah, I only counted up to 3. So.
Right. Yeah.
And is it a sign from up there or down there?
Exactly.
And he can't answer the
How do
question.
you take it?
On top of everything else, no, outside wood.
Because his pride would tell him it's about him.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, how would you take it? Would it be a sign from God or a warning from the devil?
And then
or a warning from God and a sign from the devil? Who knows?
Yeah, and his family as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Catherine keeps her own counsel, but she still looks to her husband for strength.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
And he can't answer it.
So yeah, I do agree. I do think that's when the lightning storm should happen.
Yes.
Because it's such a crescendo of build up, that entire sequence. Anyway, and by smushing those events together, it just intensifies that. Mm-hmm. And again, because we're talking about these people in this time, it's so much more terrifying for them. And if we're being adequately drawn into the film, which, considering the people who are making it, and we're still making, these people are still making our film for us. The cinematography, the direction, is going to draw us ever more intensely into their world and their fear and their paranoia about what this is and what it means.
So this is one quick question. Again, as we slightly strayed into talking about production talk of how this new film would look, which is not something we've really done yet.
Well, we briefly talked about it with Don Bluth. But
we did, yeah. But not in the respect of what I was going to bring up here.
Oh, okay.
Who's doing the score? Because they play such an integral part to both of those films. Are we looking for I was looking earlier, I forgot the guy's name, but the guy who did Color Out of Space, which is very synth.
Electronic.
Yeah, very 80s, oddly enough, but also very, very, very emotive and atmospheric. Or are we sticking with the period?
I think we should keep the soundtracks with the period. Yeah. Because they work. Like the choral parts in the Witch soundtrack are so
jarring.
Yes, exactly. And they're achieving the same effect, but within the context of the film that they're in. I feel a synth score would kind of fuck with your suspension of disbelief a bit. Yes, it would. You're right. And I wouldn't want to do anything that would take our audience out of the situation.
Yeah, no, you're right. And of course, yes, it works in colour in the film itself because it's like the film. It's neon.
Yes.
The music is neon with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So we've covered what we missed, what we skipped over, and we're up to this day and a half to 2 days.
Yes.
When
everything starts to go wrong, that's when time starts to get very daffy, and
the effect on the wildlife and the plant life is very much pronounced.
Flourishing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like the idea then, again, Thomasin filling the Lavinia role.
Of course, she's the perfect counterpoint.
has to go and clean up the fingers.
Oh gosh, yes, of course, yes. In a world where you can't sew them back on, she just has to clean up the fingers.
Yes.
Never mind the knife.
Yeah.
You have to pick up the fingers, and then what do you do with them?
Yeah. Which is again, so they're going to have to go and get water.
Mm-hmm. Clean the knife.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Send the twins to get the water. Well, no, send Caleb to go and get the water.
Yes.
Because the goats are out. You can't do anything with them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So he has to go and get the water. So yes. No, because it happens later. They lose the dog later. So no, we're good with Fowler. He's still there.
Okay. Cool.
And when he goes down there, somewhere a little bit further down the brook, there's the twins again.
Yes, singing to the river,
Yeah.
or singing with the river, maybe.
But because he's being affected, again, the effect on him is that, well, normally he'd be like, get back to the house or whatever. I mean, do we want to then say the effect on Caleb is his slightly unsavoury thoughts towards his sister?
It's one of those things that the film avoids, but if I remember correctly, the original fiction alluded to. I think it was described as unnatural behaviour.
Right. So it works in that context, and I was simply thinking about it in terms of...
It comes back to the sins of the family, and his sin is lust.
Yes.
I mean, it's how the witch gets him, it's why he spies on his sister.
Yeah.
His sin is lust.
So it would definitely play up to that, so yes.
Or avarice, actually. Avarice, because he wants what he can't have. Because he also wants apples.
Yes. Which, again, the symbolism of the apples in there, in that one. Which we can include still, that would still be a factor, because that first meeting where he lies
Yes.
about them going to the woods,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
he mentions about the apples, which leads into the witch, so we can include it in here, because we can have fruit that looks like apples on the tree.
He has something of a covetous nature.
Yes.
Would be the simplest way of describing it. Whether it be manifesting in the form of lust or direct avarice of another's possessions, or of what he can't have. More accurately, it's not others' things. It's
so
what he can't
that makes that scene with Thompson asking him to go and get water, because it's just the two of them in the house.
Yes.
So even leading into him going down to the brook.
So maybe
it's suddenly very awkward scene.
Asked him to go and get the water is because he's beginning to creep her out a little bit.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe she's noticed him watching her a few times.
I mean, we at this point, the problem is because the witch is so ambiguous about how savvy she is of that. There's the moment, obviously, when she wakes up and you get the impression that she's realised, but then the later scene when she comes around and hugs him when he's upset.
Yeah.
It's very sisterly.
It is, yes.
And for me, watching it, I was never sure whether she was aware. Or how much she was aware of what was happening.
I think she was aware of his looks, but I don't think she was aware of what they meant.
Of their portent, yeah. So...
because of the way she interacts with it, it suggests innocence on her part. She's not aware of how her actions or movements might be interpreted.
Interpreted by others, yeah. I only ask because will that affect what you were saying there about his behaviour? Would she cotton on to it? Oh no, I suppose it does. It works. It works.
I think you're looking at the fact that we've moved beyond the point when she embraces him by the river. We have by several days.
And also, it doesn't matter if she understands the portent. It just makes her feel uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what I'm
Sorry.
thinking.
Yes.
I don't think she thinks, he's trying to do this, but he's just staring and it's making me uncomfortable and I need water and I was going to go and do it, but actually, if you're going to keep staring at me, go and get the water.
Yeah.
It's my thought. I don't think like she's being genuinely fearful.
Yes.
She's just making her feel uncomfortable, so she sends him to the river to get him away.
And she can even say, "Where are the twins? Go and check on them."
Indeed, yeah, of course, because she's a bright girl.
Yeah,
you know.
So he goes, goes to get water, sees them there, but a bit like Benny in the thing, he's a bit dopey. He knows something's going on, but it's a bit too much.
Yeah,
So-
a little too distracted on his part.
Yes.
Yeah. What happens throughout this sequence?
So with
of
the song
events?
again, we need to have with the song again. They're talking about this creature or whatever, or something is
Yeah.
whatever it is we're going to see at the end. They can make it as poetic as they like.
So this would be about the point then. Of course, in the film it was Lavinia, and would in this version be Thomasin, but no, it would be Caleb who starts to hear the singing. It's around this point that she starts to hear the whistling.
That happens. She goes out and sees Jack staring at the well and sits with him for a bit, and then gets up and goes back. And it's as she's walking away from it that she starts to hear it.
Yeah.
So we're not quite there yet because that's that evening. Because this is the bit.
Okay, that's fair enough.
This is the bit
Fair
where she's taking care of the fingers,
That's
and
fine.
then she goes and throws up, doesn't she?
Oh yes, she does. Yes.
Um,
Although her guts have been going galur for
Yeah.
a little while at this point, haven't they?
So
So
I'm seeing this as she's waiting for Caleb to come back, waiting to come back.
She's been sick because of cleaning up the fingers.
Yeah, and she hasn't got the water to do it.
She can't even wash the taste out of her mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
comes back, and then he turns up with the water when it's too late.
yeah, it's like
But where's
it's been hours.
Yeah, where's the twins?
Okay, yeah, of course, where are the twins? And then she goes out.
And she goes out looking for
Of
them.
course. Because you see, this is why I think he should be hearing the singing. Because he'd wander back distracted, being all affected.
Okay, yeah, I
And
can see
not
that.
think about the fact that he left the twins behind.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then she's like, well, where are the twins? And he's like, well, what?
Mm.
Brought the water.
I mean,
I don't know.
the only,
at this point,
the only
this-
problem I have with that is that the two who retain their sanity the longest are Lavinia and Benny.
Yes. But at this point, they're still the last to hear it.
Because Benny kind of drops like that
Yeah.
when he goes up to Sam. He's still pretty on the ball until that point.
No, yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's too soon for him to be hearing the music. To sit to hear the whistling.
Well, we are talking about the point at which Lavinia starts to hear the music. So even though she and he are the most sane by the end at that point, they are starting to be affected by this point in the story.
I see that. I'm just thinking in terms of what I remember from the film, it's Benny appears to be the last one to hear. There's never a moment where he hears it that I recall. Until,
There are a number of scenes of him just staring at the well.
I've forgotten even about the first time when the meteor lands.
Yeah.
He's just staring at his screen dribbling.
All the symbols on the screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's not about when they get infected. I think it's about how strong their will is
Yes.
as to how long they last out. So
But they can slip in and out.
they can slip it out. They can
Yes.
be affected. We can see them being affected without it destroying their mind.
Mhm.
It's just that at this point they're starting to be observably affected by the phenomenon.
But certainly by this point, they are in their moments of lucidity.
Mhm.
They know something's wrong,
Yes.
and they need. But again, the children, they need to tell their parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But yes, so as we said, she goes off to find the twins. It's starting to get dark.
Yes.
Through this suddenly very colourful looking scenery.
Yeah, by this point it should be noticeable in almost
Yes.
every shot that there are patches of this colour everywhere.
Not
So
quite
it's very-
moving trees yet because that's so subtly done.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, did that?
Oh, you have
Right.
to watch it and watch it and watch
Yeah.
it. You really do.
Yes. Thompson goes down to the brook, finds the kids. I imagine by this point they've stopped singing. They're just,
Yeah. Maybe just sitting there watching the group.
or as we established earlier, and again, obviously, yes, it is a nod to The Shining. Just the two holding hands, staring at the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, because that sort of image is so striking. You might as well make the most of it.
And that's the thing. She comes down looking for them again, and it's like, oh, they're not making lots of noise. Are you okay? Are you all right? What are you doing? And then looks into the river, and again, the brook itself. It's the perfect foil for the TV screen.
Yes, because it's got that
Yes,
motion, the
yes.
reflection.
Yeah,
Yeah, you start to see some of the symbols, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
And then says, right, come on, we've got to go. No, it's time to come home.
Yeah.
Turns to walk away, and as she walks away, starts to hear it.
Yeah.
Isn't that about the point where the parents get back? I know they see the cat on the way back.
They see the cat on the way back, which...
We've lost G-Spot.
Yes, we've lost G-Spot.
Apparently the cat that plays G-Spot is actually called Lucifer.
That's even more fitting.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused. When did they lose Sam in The Colour Out of Space? Is it not around about this point?
It is right about this point. Because Jack's still outside, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that's when it starts to glow, and he runs after it. Because Lavinia goes back into the house and leaves him out. Leaves Jack out.
That's right.
'Cause
That's right. That's why the scene wasn't quite making sense in my
Yes.
head.
So it's kind of late afternoon, and then it's night by the time that happens with Sam.
Of course, that's right. Yeah. And it's one of those points when she loses time, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why this is not making sense, because we're forgetting about these. Yeah.
About the time dilations, yeah. Okay, so she goes down, tells them to come back.
Yeah. Starts to walk away, hears the
Yeah.
sound,
And then it's later in the evening.
and then it's later. And,
Yeah.
and
We
it's
don't
all
need
got
to,
a bit
but we don't
weird.
need you to adopt that.
Of course, yes. No, that's how it works.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Got to remember those damn time dilations.
Because there is a moment as well, isn't there, when Benny comes out and sits with him and says it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, he does.
I don't know if that's a bit later. No, it must be around now.
It must be around now, because it's after this that things start going south
So it can
very quickly.
So it can just be there. It's just Khaled and Thompson in the house. I'll go and get them back in.
Mm.
Not concerned, because again, that's the effect of the colour.
Yeah, of course.
Just
yeah.
go and get them back in. And he goes off, and they're still there, with this light coming from the brook. And because, like in colour, Sam is very much Benny's dog.
Yes.
In this case, Fowler does tend to follow Caleb around.
Yeah, it does very much so.
So
Yeah.
it follows him down there.
Yeah.
So we can. I know they're two separate incidents in the original film,
But
but this
in
one we
this
have to
instance-
mash them together into one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they get transfixed by this thing, and Fowler starts barking, charging into the brook.
Charges off into the darkness. Yeah.
Yep.
And then,
And this is the point where, so we will say that when he gets the twins away and is heading home,
Mhm.
this is the point when Mum and Dad get back.
Yes.
Obviously, within this sequence of events, there will be a cutaway scene with them getting to Ezra.
Yes.
I know it doesn't really replicate. I mean, we don't even really need it,
No.
because it's the phone call that's getting
Hang
jammed
on
up.
Hang on a minute. No, we've missed something.
Have we?
Yes, we have.
What?
We haven't had a visit from Ezra.
I thought there was no way that we were going to put. I
No,
don't think there's a way that we can put it in there.
We did the whole thing with they're going to go away to the village.
Yes, we did.
So we forgot Ezra. Now, what happened? This is when Ward comes to literally warn them not to drink the water. He thinks something is wrong.
Yes,
So, and that's like,
and that can
it
be.
happens when Lavinia loses time. So it's going to happen around about the time that Thomasin. So
we are. I think here we have to interpose a scene which replicates one of the scenes from Outer Space, where Ezra goes to get water himself and sees something in the water.
yes. Oh yes, we do need to show that. We haven't been,
Because there is the
away.
bit when he's doing the test, isn't he, in his tent at night.
That's right, and everything goes weird. Yes.
So we need something like that, which would be just him, going to get water himself, and
Yeah.
further down the brook, and he's like, no. So yes, and that's when he goes to warn them. The
Yes.
next day. So he comes to tell them before he goes to the village himself to warn them, because the brook may supply part. May run into a river.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
a
and that would
tributary to
explain
a
him
river.
disappearing for such a long time.
Yeah.
I like where you're going with
It
this.
keeps-
Yes,
it
I
keeps
do like
with-
this.
It keeps with the Lovecraftian element of that.
Yes. Yes.
But he wants to tell them because he knows that they're there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that does make sense.
The question, though, I suppose we need to consider there is, we need him to go. Is that fitting for his character? I know it's a slightly different one because he's not a cast. He's not an outcast. He is an outcast for different reasons. Because obviously he's not a rebelling against the technocracy, if you like.
No, of course not. No. But he's
He's rebelling against more about religious persecution.
Yeah.
But I suppose
But he's an outsider.
Mhm.
He is an outsider. He's not an outcast, but he's an outsider.
it's a difficult one because we're mashing two different characters into one role.
Yes, we are. We're making things fit where they don't necessarily.
Which we will allow it for this one, and it's something I think we should keep to a minimum. Overall, moving forward, because I know we're trying to keep the plots as much as possible. It's a special because it's Halloween.
Yeah, that's the thing. We are under special circumstances here. We've got to adapt to the
Yes.
situations we're given ourselves.
And the supernatural does.
So, having sorted out everything with Ezra,
Yes,
we finally do arrive when the parents
come back home.
come back home.
Now, this is so much happened so quickly in this, in the original film. And I think it's going to be the same. In fact, I feel like it might even go faster.
Yes.
Because there are fewer things to distract them from the nightmare of the situation. In the film, he still tries to drink. They keep watching the TV obsessively. They don't have those objects
No.
to distract them.
But he has other concerns. He has all the concerns with the family. Getting the goats back in.
Yes.
It's probably that similarly to. So again, we lose G-Spot. We lose that element. But that's fine. That's a small thing.
Yeah, yes, we lose the G-spot.
But it's maybe on the way back, they're close to the brook, that they see the children still out there.
So you want to do it from the brook rather than from the barn?
From the barn. I think we come to that. If it parallels the film, the first thing they see is the fact that Jack is still out and sat watching.
Oh, of course.
Right,
And then-
I see what you're saying.
then
I see what you're saying.
Alpacas.
I think I'm getting ahead of things just a little bit.
But I do want to raise a point.
Mm-hmm.
In which they had a partially built barn. Actually, 2/3 of the way built barn.
Yes, because he mentions it.
But they didn't keep their animals in it.
No. They had a pen for them.
Yeah, they had a pen for them. Visually speaking, that is far less striking for us to do that entire scene from a goat pen.
Can we agree that maybe they have started moving the goats into the barn?
Okay.
Just for the sake of the visuals.
For the visuals, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
That's all I wanted to say, but I thought it was worth.
No, that is.
Because it's only that big, the goat pen.
We can even. Perfect. Got it. They're coming back.
Mhm.
They spot. So it's now Thomason trying to get the kids back from. No,
To get Jonas and Mercy back from the
yes, from
brook.
the brook. What the hell's all of this? They get back to the farm. The goats are out.
Of course.
Try to put them away.
Shouting at Caleb and Hughes
Yes.
in
Much the same way.
But when the goats got out, the door's broken. So the only place they can store them is in the barn, which isn't finished yet.
I love that. That makes it still means that the goat pen has relevance, but there's a narrative reason for it to move to the barn. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
You solved my issue very, very well there. Thank you.
Where's the dog? Nobody knows.
No, that's right, because he's run off.
Yeah.
That's just before they got back. Yeah, all that stuff.
So yes, we do rush very quickly into
It
this
just
then,
move quickly forward.
because what would then happen now?
There's the ruckus in the middle of the night.
No, it's not.
It's not even in the middle of the night. It's in the early evening, isn't it? Because Jack is up and Betty takes him into the barn.
No. I was thinking that what would happen now
Sorry.
is because again we've lost all of the stuff with because Catherine wouldn't be on the internet talking to a business partners.
Of course not. And
So it's more
also
about
the
the
phone
family
calls
stuff.
from hospital and all of those
Yes,
things.
all of
wouldn't
those things
happen.
won't happen. So I think we can move quite quickly into probably the same night.
But that's it. That's
No,
true.
no. We would have to. Sorry, we skipped over something. So that resolves itself. They get all back into the.
Of course, yes.
Yes.
No,
No. I've got it. They get all back into the house.
Yes.
That then we have to do a jump cut to the next day,
Yes.
because that will be the stuff with the crop.
Yes, of course, with the bumper crop.
Yes.
And now you see here, interesting, of course, Catherine doesn't have an internet business to distract her. So that confrontation between
Teresa and Nathan wouldn't occur in the same way as it would between William and Catherine.
But it
What
can.
would it be? What would it be though? Because there has to be something, an inciting incident.
he's annoyed because of the fruit that's so abundant and yet so awful.
No? No? Oh, okay. All right.
So-
I'm with you. All right.
Comes out, the crop is bumpy. It's him and Caleb gathering in the crop.
Yeah.
He then gives it to Catherine to prepare. She prepares it. He tries it. It's rubbish. Conflict.
Yes.
You don't appreciate my efforts. You haven't done the job properly.
First of all,
woman.
yes, again,
Back and forth, yes.
So he's so
That's the
hypnotized.
16th century equivalent
Yes.
of fix the fucking Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
No, that would be an
It'd be
actual
fascinating as well, because it would be
version of that
it would
conflict.
be these very weird versions of corn
Mm.
that he brings in to prepare.
Yeah.
Full of the pride that, again, because his brain is affected by the colour, but it accentuates his natural tendencies. So his pride at, look, I have a bumper crop for you.
Yeah, of course. I gave you this abundance of food and
Yes,
you
and
turned
you
it
turned it
to
into
trash.
In considering the
Livelihoods and the natures of the roles and relationships in the 16th century, that's the equivalent.
Yeah.
It is, because at that point in time, her job was to tend to the home as it was his to tend to the field.
And then throwing with everything else that's going on with all the children as well.
Yeah.
So directing all of that, Thompson as well as the eldest child.
Oh, of course.
To take on the mother role and look after her siblings.
Yeah.
Because again, they'll be doing all their stuff with the song and all this kind of thing at this point.
Now, you see, if I'm remembering correctly, in The Colour Out of Space, this is when we get another bout of Nathan drinking.
It is.
So
So what we've just described there, the upshot of that scene we've just described is he goes out straight back
Start.
on the wood.
dropping that word again.
But
Dropping
also,
that word
this
again.
is where we start to see Lavinia and Benny. We need to get the hell out of here. So we need to see a parallel of that with Thomason and Caleb.
All right. Okay, this is where we've gone into so much detail about transporting elements from The Colour Out of Space into the 16th century. We've overlooked a few things that occur naturally as a consequence.
Of their time.
Over their time, such as the parents' conversation about finding a husband for Thomasin and things like that.
But we've kind of negated that because part of the need for that was because of the failed crop. The crop hasn't failed now.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I was just thinking that if we remembered that conversation, it would give Thomasin a reason to maybe think to strike out on her own.
Oh, okay.
That the notion that her parents, her literal creators, rejected her.
So keeping with the
So
keeping with the deadly sins kind of element that
that's what I
exists
mean.
in
I'm
that film.
trying. We're forgetting about that part of it a little bit.
The abundant crop may lead. So the abundant crop, which again it fails, but so
We see.
so well yeah the food but the food is inedible, so the crop has failed.
Yeah, the crop has failed. Yeah, but also even so, William's never specific.
He doesn't say, I'm going to find someone to take Thomasin.
Mm.
He said, I'm going to find a husband for her. Now, does that mean that he intends for her husband to take her? Or does that mean he intends for her husband to come and help on the farm or provide another role or something like that?
So, I mean, whether or not he thinks the crop is bumper, there's still a version of that where he would have the conversation about finding a husband for Thomasin. Because Caleb's barely able to help with the harvest.
And he can't deal with it on his own. And he's talking about building a field of corn twice the size of the space they're already taking up.
There's something else we haven't considered as well.
What's that?
The thing with the crops, Nathan is the only one to try them. And I always assumed that when he tries them, he can just smell that smell. That's why they're off. So it doesn't.
Because he bites. He bites.
He bites
every one.
He bites into it, and but is he repulsed by it because he can taste
are you
the
saying that
smell
maybe there's
that he can-
nothing wrong with the food and that
Yes.
it's his
and that
insanity coming through?
yes, or is it? See, that's the thing. Is it his
Well,
insanity?
that's an interesting way of taking it. I was thinking very literally in that situation. That
See, I always assumed it was when he bites into it, he can taste the same smell that
no,
he's getting from
what
the
if
thing.
his curse is to think everything's spoiled?
Yeah.
No matter how abundant it is. Oh, that's interesting.
That's how I.
Because again, as I was saying earlier on, it's the sort of thing that plays into his pride.
Mm-hmm.
His job was to tend the field.
To provide for
Her
his
job
family.
was to tend the house.
Yeah.
He tended the field. It came up abundant, and yet it disgusts him.
So it works.
And his pride being so terribly wounded in a way that he can't explain to his own wife
Mhm.
would drive him. Yes. Yeah, it works.
That's what I mean. I wanted to keep the psychological horror
Yeah.
that was in The Witch.
Yes.
We
It's-
can lose
oh,
the
yeah.
supernatural. Well, we don't lose the supernatural.
We
still
actually
have
get
the
more of the supernatural. Yeah.
But the actual psychological horror is not
It
the
shouldn't.
same thing as the supernatural element.
Yeah.
They are,
For
they are
it
separate
to-
things interacting.
For it to be in any reasonable respect called The Witch film,
Yes.
it has to have that element, and this fills it.
Yeah.
Because it means that we can still have that conversation,
Yes.
that he wants to do that because he thinks the crop has failed, but she's like, well, what?
Absolutely.
Plus also the fact we have to remember that he's trying to have this conversation with her, and she's still having to come to terms with the fact that she's lost 2 fingers.
Oh, fuck. I completely forgotten about that. Yes, of course. Of course. It's just everything. Her whole world is... Oh, yeah.
Which means we can fast track almost into, as I said, let me think. The scene after this then would have to be,
That's when it comes to the evening.
that's when it comes to the evening, when he comes out.
Nathan is drinking. Obviously,
He's
William is chopping.
Yeah.
And that's when things start to go weird.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm trying to remember, either the alpacas got out or they started making a ruckus and Benny took Jack to the barn to check it out.
That's what I'm remembering. And then
So
they
I
run
think-
away, and Benny runs all the way away, but Jack stops to see the light. And that's when the mother comes out and everything happens.
Yes.
That's how I remember it happening in The Colour Out of Space. So obviously we've got one thing that's slightly different because Dad is already outside when things start to go
But
wrong.
he's round the other side of the house.
Of course,
He's round the back of the house
Yes.
chopping the wood. Yes.
which is the other side from the barn.
Mhm.
So,
I think because of the way...
so Caleb,
So sticking with how the twins are, they've just gone out there. And Caleb goes to find them.
And they follow him. It's not him taking them, they follow him.
because
Yes,
in
there's a
literally
ruckus
in
from
The
the
Colour
barn.
Out of Space,
Yes.
Benny has Jack
Yes.
by the hand and leads him
Yes,
into
he
the
does.
barn.
Yeah. So, yes, that makes sense. That Dad's outside chopping again.
Yeah.
There's a ruckus from the barn. Catherine sends Caleb to go and see what the ruckus is. The twins follow him out.
And they would be holding each other's hands, which calls back to our early scenes of creepiness, but also
Comes back to the hand holding, guiding you forward,
Mhm.
momentous occasion kind of vibe to that scene that we want to arise.
That leaves Catherine and Thomason in the house. I know it's slightly out of sequence with the events from the original film, but that's where there can be that mother-daughter conflict that we get in the original when she says, "Oh, you were, practically flashing your legs at Ward." I know we haven't got that because she wasn't there at the time in this new film, but it's a moment to include that scene in the narrative.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I think you're right to call that element in, but I think that we can slightly more intelligently layer this in.
So when Ezra first turns up,
Mhm.
back when the meteorite first arrived, Thomason can be flirtatious. I'm using quotation marks because in the Puritan times, flirtation is a very loose term.
yes.
But she could be flirtatious there. This whole time, her mother's been saying nothing and saying nothing, and then
And this
suddenly,
is the first moment that she
I
has.
saw you.
Yes.
You were practically throwing yourself at him.
I mean, the thing is,
And
the
that's the thing.
supposed flirtation doesn't even have to be real. It could
No.
just be in Catherine's mind
Exactly. And it makes sense because, again, that's how she's being affected.
because of her pure tyrannical outlook
Yeah.
and the way she's being affected by the colour combining together. She would just draw this inevitable
Mhm.
conclusion out and see the worst.
That works.
So it still
No,
makes
no.
sense as a scene. We just have to slightly adjust perspectives when we do that earlier.
But that
earlier
works
scene.
because it works that it's something that happened so early on in the film that's picked up then.
Yeah.
Because it serves as the equivalent of what eventually leads to her damnation is the loss of her child.
Yes.
It's an early event in the film that keeps bringing up and that she gets stuck on and is like a broken record about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So obviously we
Which
don't get
we've
the,
already seen earlier on with
Yeah.
the whole conversation about the cup and the first
Yes.
family dinner scene. So we know that she's prone to just gnawing away at a situation,
Yeah.
and this is just being exaggerated and mutated beyond its natural parameters.
Mm-hmm.
As the color tends to do. I like it. It
Yes.
works. It works psychologically and supernaturally, and that's for this version of the film to be true to its roots. It needs to have both the psychological and the supernatural
Absolutely.
simultaneously in kind of an almost symbiotic nature.
So that's quite an intense scene between them.
Yes.
The culmination of that scene is the light from the brook. The children start, the twins start
Right.
screaming.
You see, this is where like
Why the light from the brook? Why not the light from the barn? Because that's where it comes from.
That's my bad.
Yeah.
That's me misremembering.
no, it's all right. I just wanted to be clear, so I wasn't sure if you were
No,
going
it's because of,
differently narratively.
no. That's
Right, okay.
that's just me misremembering.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so the light from the barn, and as a way of breaking it out of this confrontation, Mum runs off.
Yeah, the screaming of the children,
Yes.
the light, the screaming,
It rouses
rouses
Nathan.
them from their
That's what Nathan-
confrontation.
William from his chopping.
Yes,
A few seconds later, so
A
he's
few
bit-
seconds later.
he's behind. By which time I imagine Thompson's at the door of the house.
Catherine's
She's run-
already
yes.
run out.
Caleb's ducked for cover.
to grab her children.
Wraps them up, and then
The light.
yes,
Now, this is when I said 5 minutes ago or whatever, I just started to thought, you know, in The Witch, when she starts to lose her mind and she
Mhm.
hallucinates that she's feeding Samuel
yes,
whilst the raven is eating her teat,
yeah,
is like
yes, yeah,
that psychologically she's going to her child and saving it and succouring it and being embedded in that concept is thematically quite similar to exactly what happens
Yes.
to her with The Witch.
Yeah.
It's that nurturing need, the caring, succouring, nurturing need within her that is ultimately her downfall in that moment.
it is. It's interesting, but because this brings up the next question: how does the family react to this? I know that
This is where I think things start to accelerate
yes,
in this timeline.
There's no ignoring this. Worse still, there isn't even a shotgun to use.
he's got his gun. He has got his gun
He does have his gun.
because we haven't lost it in this because
Oh,
Caleb
no,
didn't lose it in the woods.
that's true. He does have his gun.
It's interesting as well because there is a lovely symbolic thing in Colour Out of Space shortly before this, or was it a little bit earlier in the film. They focus on an ornament that's on a mantelpiece in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a chimera.
Yes, that root thing.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yes, there's one significant shot of it.
What is that? Oh!
It's a thing.
Oh, it's a thing. No, it's the roots of something.
yeah,
But it's this chimerical
yeah.
image. Yeah.
So how do they treat it? Do they treat it as? Do they take it as devil spawn? And just
Well, this is what I'm thinking. With their mindset in this period, this is not the work of God.
No.
And remember, we're still talking about a super religious, ultra pious
yeah,
family turned out of their own community for being too religious.
Are they going to think? And that's why I think things from this point might accelerate quite quickly.
absolutely.
Unless we take the because they're crazy route.
because they are crazy by this point. They all
I mean, they are. I mean, who wouldn't be losing their mind at this point?
Mhm.
But how far do you stretch because they're crazy? I mean, I'm not saying.
See, I would say for certain characters, certainly probably for William, it has the potential to reset his faith. I think he would want to destroy them.
Okay, but if we do that, we are not using the because they're crazy card.
This something like that, something that just to a mind so close, and to a mind that's essentially a simple mind that has
Then this is
good and evil. That's the tenets of what their life has entirely been. It's good and evil, and this is something other.
Yeah.
It's there are three people in this thing, and it's still alive. That's not natural, and it would figure if the colour is accentuating his personality. I think he would go down that route.
I understand.
understand exactly what you're saying.
Just a little
One drop. I understand perfectly what you're saying. My point is, I think you're correct, and it's a perfectly viable option to take this narrative down. But if we do, then everything accelerates very quickly at this point.
Oh, it does.
We're unlikely to see a full transformation because someone is going to try and murder them far before they have a chance to change.
It
to
depends.
their other
It
form.
depends then on how much we want.
Or, of course, we accelerate the transformation. Maybe that's. But even then,
I
what I'm
think-
saying is the film we're talking about now is going to have a much more abrupt climax.
It is. I think it would have to be somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
The transformation is accelerated.
Okay. So we start to see the monster that it is becoming, and not just this
But
horrible merging of flesh, but an
Yeah.
actual monster.
possibly because it has more flesh to work with. It has three separate entities. It works quicker.
I can accept that.
It also depends on how much we want to allow, or to allow Thomason and Caleb to stop him doing it. Because don't forget, he only wants to kill it up until the point he kisses it, and then it affects him because he gets the
Yes.
saliva contact, which affects him like presence basically, and he just kind of steps
Okay.
away from it.
Right. Okay. I see where you're going with this.
All right. I find it nearly impossible that Caleb's going to be able to restrain him in any reasonable respect. How long is this struggle going to go on for?
Well, if we look at the parallel for what this scene represents, which is when Caleb comes back from the witch, their first instinct is to get them inside and then to pray for salvation and to pray for their salvation. Prayer is their go-to.
And then only after he has to go and murder the
Goats.
alpacas, goats,
Yes.
does he get that murderous intent and then
You
have
may
to...
have it to begin with initially, but
No, you're right. You're right. I was radically oversimplifying that.
Mm.
Radically.
Yes, you're right. There is more to be had here.
which is part of the
There is
reason.
more we can tease
Which
out
is interesting
from this,
because at this point we've got to the point why I thought these two would merge so well. Is they have beautiful attic scene. That's why I thought the two of them would match up so well.
Yes. You know
That's-
what? I'd never even considered that, but of course,
That
yes,
was
it's
my
completely true.
my initial kind of thought. So they would convince me enough to bring them inside.
Mhm.
We can then do a cutaway scene to Ezra arriving at the village,
Of course.
and they found these weird things that have come from the river that the brook runs into.
Mhm. Yes.
So again, that replicates that scene for Ward in the thing.
Of course, yes, yes.
Obviously, we don't have the cat, but that's fine. It's enough that he knows enough that there's a similarity there, and since you need to come with some men and come back to this farm, there's people there in trouble.
Yes. Yes,
So
of
that-
course. Yes, you finally, to make that point, I see what you mean. The cutaway.
That there is an external world and it is
Yes.
aware or becoming aware of something.
Yeah.
Yes.
There would be uproar in the town because it wouldn't be just a curiosity. There would be uproar. These kind of weird creatures that they found in the river.
So it'd be something like similar to, like we would see Ezra doing these things, going through the motions, through scenes, but it would almost be like a montage of that mixed with these shots of just this extended prayer.
At first they're fervent and energetic, and then they're worn out, and then they're desperate, and then they're and then they're screaming because they're even more desperate. And there'd be this montage of him trying to do something,
yes,
and them trying desperately to do something, and nothing happening.
Because there's no response. Because in The Witch there's a response. The twins respond to them praying. Eventually, have to step away.
And of course, in the background of all of this is the growing noise, the growing wailing, screeching of the goats in the barn.
And again, just to throw in some of those lovely panoramic shots in
Yeah.
the film, when things starting to move on their own,
Yes.
and all those,
Yeah.
which we can then cut away to. They've come out. They've left them there.
Mhm.
Because I think the next bit then we would have to do, which would probably have to be. So we're allowing that to happen that night. So we're then leaping forward to the next day, which is when the prayer is happening. So we're leaping forward towards the next night, which will be the final night. Ezra is on his way back. Has spent most of the day travelling back.
I was about to say, why are we jumping forward in time, but it's because of Ezra, isn't it?
Because the next couple of scenes will be we lose Caleb.
Of course we do.
Caleb lives in the brook now. I've been waiting all this time to say that.
I could tell there was the look on your face.
So
Cool.
we brought
Cool,
back
that's
in.
what we need.
Yes, no. So as we said, we've brought this creature back into the barn,
Yes.
into the attic.
Yes.
We then we'll have the scene with them during the day, doing the prayers,
Of course, yes.
with a cutaway, probably trying with the lighting suggest it's late morning.
Yeah.
With Ezra reaching the town and finding out what's going on there.
Yeah.
And then leaving to head back because he knows it's going to take him a while to get back there.
Yeah.
Probably, I'm imagining with the sheriff, because there would have been a sheriff, and possibly even with the priest.
Possibly a priest. I don't know if there'd have been a sheriff. This is colonial.
Yeah, they're sheriffs. Where do the sheriff of Nottingham? It's an English term.
It's like if there's no reference of a sheriff in Salem, in the Salem documents. There is many references to the governor and the magistrates.
But this would be whoever's in charge of the militia, who's probably a sheriff.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
And again, we're still not talking about the plantation. We're talking about this village, which might operate under different conditions anyway. So yes, I'm probably just talking.
No, it's a reasonable assumption.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So we see them leaving, knowing, obviously we know as the audience, they're not going to get back until later in the evening. So,
Yes.
so we just see that we established that that's what's happening there. They're on their way back. So
Yes,
we'll have to
of
see
course.
when they interject
Absolutely.
themselves back into the narrative.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of what's
Yeah.
happening in the meanwhile. Yeah.
In that period of time, you've got the moments where it would now be Thomason and Caleb are saying, we need to be going. There's the scene, isn't there, where she tries to tell Nathan that they have to go and he doesn't listen.
Yes.
And after all of this prayer, nothing's working. He doesn't know what to do, so he goes out and starts chopping.
You see, this is where I disagree because
Oh.
I feel that in the background, this
No,
whole time,
sorry, we've forgotten
the
something.
noise of the goats has been rising.
So maybe he does go out to quote unquote chop wood and maybe gets through a piece or two, but the noise just gets to him.
Yeah, my other thing would have been with that is they're praying and praying, nothing's happening, and there's this noise going on in the background, and he thinks that that's stopping the prayer.
It's possible, but
But
I
that doesn't-
like what we just came up
Yes,
with.
no, I
better.
like what you, I do. No, I do.
Like he goes to chop wood
Yes.
to relieve himself, and then distracted from that noise by that noise so completely, still with the chopper in his hand, he
Mhm.
enters the barn to see what's become of his goats.
Yes.
We don't need the gun. He's got an axe.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why I liked it, because it's not like he picks up the axe to go and kill them. He's going to chop wood, but he's got the thing in his hand. So
Like it's just like a natural thing, well, like not a natural thing. It's part of that hypnosis of the moment
Mhm.
that's happened with so much of the other parts of the story.
Which would actually makes that scene even more terrifying because when he comes back in, if they don't know where he's gone and what he's done, he just comes back in and he's covered in blood.
He's covered in blood with a bloody axe in his hand.
What are you going to do? I'm going to handle it.
Yes.
And then they just...
Yeah,
Yes.
no, that's even better.
That
That's
is-
even more terrifying.
Because
It really is. Yes. It really is.
And it also gives...
They don't need to know.
Yes, and it also gives impetus for the two of them to go, fuck it, we're out of here.
Yes.
So they go to take the horse.
And the horse, of course, freaks the fuck out.
Just worked out.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's hard to tell whether the horse freaks out if the horse is infected. Because there's a reflection of something in its eyes. But it's hard to tell whether it's something that it sees or if it's within it.
Oh.
It's very well done.
Oh, right.
Because the horse lives as a horse. It's not mutated.
No, that's true. That is true.
Well, I kind of like what you just described to me. The ambiguity, I feel like we should keep that.
And it's at that point that he thinks he starts hearing Sam,
Yes.
or Fowler in this case, and goes down to follow it, and she tries to stop him. I think it will because there's not a well for him to go into, which is always a bit of a weird scene that he just suddenly, with how much he knows what's going on, it's such a switch that he goes, "Oh, I'm going to climb down this well,"
I can see him moving down there. I can
Yeah.
hear him.
and
Yeah, no.
she's trying to stop him. I
Yeah.
think it's just a case of he gets closer to the brook, and it just goes boom, and grabs him and pulls him in.
Well, I was going to say there are a couple of areas around, like where they were filming. There's a sort of a quasi bend in that bit of brook, and there's like little patches of rush and reed.
Yeah.
And it could be that he's attracted to one of those bushes.
Say, I
it's
can
the
see
brook,
him,
the reeds.
or I can hear
He's
him.
there. He's in the reeds or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Which is when she then goes back into the house,
Yes.
and he's come out, and they have that conversation. We need to get out of here, and then he throws her in the room.
Yes. Yes, it's time to feed your mother.
Yeah.
So, yes, so
Was there a light went off and on again?
Possibly. It seemed dim there for a moment.
Are we close to Halloween?
it's Halloween time.
Sorry, we're not excited at all.
Stiff on
Fuck a lip. British. So we've got to a point where as we said, he's gone. Caleb
Caleb
is
lives
gone,
in the brook now. Caleb lives in the brook now.
and as we said, Thomason is now feeding Mother.
And yes, that's right. Thomason has been thrown into the attic to feed Mother. And everything reaches a crescendo at this point.
And I can imagine then in our version of it, William goes back outside and starts chopping wood.
Yes, of course he does. Yes, of course he does.
I like the fact that we both picked up on that. That's cool.
And maybe like at this point in time, because obviously we don't have the television with the symbols for us, but I'd like to think that maybe by this point, like every time he chops, we see more of those symbols in the iridescence in the wood. So by this point, you can almost see the symbols from the front of the Necronomicon.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, because we've lost that in this, obviously, but
Yeah. That would be nice. So it's each time he chops, it gets a little more obvious
Yeah.
what he's seeing.
This will very quickly lead into
Ezra arriving with the sheriff.
Yeah.
And the screaming from upstairs and the chopping and ignoring of things. And yes, and then...
I think I can see how this can work. So they turn back up at the farm, they see everything that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
They see William there chopping.
Yes.
So that's that conversation with him, and he says, Caleb, I'm going to hold that line about Caleb living in the brook, because I think we can use that to replace in the original film where they go to get Ezra.
Oh, right.
That's the reason for them to leave. Oh, we can't leave him down there.
Okay, yes.
So they come in, they get to him and they start talking to him. He's kind of bemused to see that, because he's been in isolation, really. He's only in his family, so it's not only Ezra, there's other people as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's when you start hearing the screaming and shouting from inside the house.
Of course.
So they go in.
And
there's a very rude awakening for potentially for a very unprepared priest.
Oh God! Oh God! Jesus, Mary, Mother of God!
I can imagine that scene being even worse, because
because if the sheriff is with them, fill his musket.
Oh,
That's
yes.
going to take, what, 30 seconds or a minute at least?
Well, that's one of the things. It's like, because they go, in
He
the original
doesn't
film, they
shoot, he
go
doesn't-
to shoot, and then Nathan does.
Yes.
But I think in this one, you've got the priest probably praying his heart out,
Mhm.
and then you've got the sheriff hurriedly loading the musket and firing, but there are 3 heads in this body now.
Yes.
And that perhaps might be when Merlium steps forward with his axe.
That makes sense.
To finish the job.
He takes
So
out
I
two
think
of the
the
heads.
sheriff shoots one of the heads.
Yeah. Yes, he takes out one of the heads. The
He
thing
takes out
falls.
one of the heads,
He
trying
comes
to
in.
reload it, coming at him,
Yes.
and
And then
William
William
steps
steps
into
in.
the room with the axe and finishes the job.
Yes.
Because I don't want to take that moment away. It's strange because Nathan is so fucking broken at that point
Yes.
in time. He is so insane, and yet for this one brief moment, he has the
Yes.
lucidity to defend these people.
It's probably the last moment
Of
of lucidity
absolute
he will
sense,
ever
yes.
experience.
Yeah.
And I don't want to
I
take
love
it
it.
away from the character, especially since this version is not Nathan, it's William, and his journey is darker and he
We
needs
can-
that redemption. He needs it.
But we can also subtly slide something in. So the sheriff takes the shot.
Yeah.
The thing's still coming. It's slowed, but it's dragging itself across the floor. He drops. He starts reloading. William comes in, finishes the job, but he still finishes reloading. The gun is already loaded. When they go outside, and he
I know
sees
where you're
William
going.
lifts up his
Yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
already loaded. Bang.
I know, I see that, and
Yeah.
yes, you want to point it out. You want to
Yes.
Chekhov's that. You want to
Yeah.
Chekhov's that gun right away. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes, that works. So, the beast lies dead.
Yes.
They go to take Thomasin outside.
Yes.
Ezra and the sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
So
And the
Ezra
priest-
leads,
and the
Ezra
priest
leads
is the
Thomasin outside.
Yeah.
And their father steps out behind them.
And then that's when the light starts coming from the brook, and
Ah.
that's when he says, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, Caleb lives in the brook now. We need to go and get Caleb."
Oh, of course, that's right. Yes.
But then he says that as he's saying that he lifts the axe. The sheriff is following behind them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. So Ezra says
So
we
what-
need to go and get Caleb,
Oh,
and then,
where's
and then
Caleb?
William says
yeah.
Caleb lives in the brook now.
And then the light starts. He lifts up the axe,
Yeah, and
and then the sheriff comes out behind them and goes bang.
yeah,
Thomasin rushes to him
yes, of course. Pretty
because
much.
she's
At
infected
this
as well.
point, it's going to mostly play out
Yes.
exactly the way that the Richard Stark
Although I
version
would
does.
say in this one, because it's traditional and everything like this, the priest has to get it. So it's the priest that gets pulled up into the tree.
Oh! Yes!
The priest
Yes,
always
absolutely,
get it.
Yes,
Priest always
yeah,
get it.
yeah, you know, you're right. You're right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
So again, it does mean that the sheriff and Ezra get
Well,
out.
again, because that calls back to the constant juxtaposition of piety and sin that this version of the story rests
Yeah.
upon.
hmm
Yes, I like it. I like it.
And then
do. I agree.
so I imagine this. They get down there. This happens. Obviously, there's not the scene with when they get to Ezra's cabin. They try and get down there. The light gets brighter. They try and they can't find Caleb. Maybe you could even have the husk of Caleb as on that's what they find in place of when they find the husk of Ezra.
Oh, right. I see what you mean. Yes.
So you still get that scene,
Yes.
but they find him amongst the
yeah.
reeds. They find-
So maybe
Caleb
him
amongst-
just sat,
among the
like, maybe
reeds.
like sat cross-legged at the edge of the brook, gazing down.
yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. I
worked.
kind of like that. I kind of like that.
And they
image.
leg it. The priest is a little bit too
Because
slow.
as they walk up behind him, they're like, Caleb, 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 and then they get close enough that
Yeah.
they can see the reflection in the river
Yeah.
of his face in the water. They don't even have to turn him around.
Yeah.
That's a lovely image. I like that one. I do like that one.
I love it. And so they run away. I imagine they split off. The sheriff runs off and we don't know what happens to him.
Yes.
The priest runs back with Ezra
Yes.
and then gets ripped up into a tree somewhere.
Yes.
Ezra gets back to the house, where everything is starting to go to shit.
Indeed. Yes.
And that's when he sees this horrible image of another world, another reality. So I would say I would play this slightly differently. I would play it that it's closer to the brook. Because if you remember in the original film, the source of when the colour leaves
Mm.
is the well.
Here's the wealth, yes.
So
yes.
it should be the brook.
That's the way it's described in the original.
And
story
I
as well.
imagine Thomason leaving in the same way that she leaves the house in The Witch to go into the woods. That similar kind of walk, that determined walk.
Yes.
And so meets him almost over halfway. And then he gets this horrible thing, the vision. And that's when the thing, which again, I was thinking about it, is essentially, I suppose what they're trying to say, what it essentially created is an Einstein-Rosen bridge
Yes.
back to its home.
Yes, I think that's what it
Yeah.
was. I don't know if it went back to its home, but that's where I think that's what it left by.
Yeah.
Yes. Because it's like a tunnel, a tornado.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you get that sort of between the house and the brook, because we haven't got a basement for him to hide in. So the only thing that he can hide in is the house.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So after Thomason dissolves into nothingness, he tries to drag himself away, gets back to the house, encounters William on the way back into the house, and he has to lock himself inside. Because there's no basement for him to hide in.
Mm. I see what you're saying. I'm just having a think to see if there's a better option. I think you're probably right.
I can't think of
But I
another one.
need to think about this for a second. I do.
You see, I'm inclined to go the other way. I'm inclined to say that this version of Ezra is not drawn back to Thomason.
Okay. That he tries to get away into the
He
forest.
flees
Into the
up
forest.
into the valley.
And again, he's just it's up into the valley because
But
Catherine
we-
always said she didn't want Caleb going up into the valley with her father.
So we
with his
lose the
father.
vision?
Uh,
Because it's
no,
she goes,
I
she
think
he
the
sees through
vision
her eyes.
happens when they find Caleb's husk.
Oh, yes, that
And that
works.
causes him to flee.
Yeah,
And then from his view up on the valley, he can see what happens.
yes, yeah. I like it. I like it.
And that's why he's the witness.
because he gets away. He gets far enough away from the sight of the of.
To not be sucked into it, to not
Yes.
be drained out. Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It works. It does actually work.
That's the end of the movie, isn't
That
it?
is pretty much the end of the movie. It's just the wrap up,
Yeah.
which could be a few, however long later it is.
Of course, yes.
Because again, we don't have a dam to dry anything out with.
But a new settlement in the same valley?
There's almost a nice parallel to the Croatoan thing here.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah.
Now you mention it, I agree.
Yeah.
And again, yes, there's a new settlement there, but I'll never go there.
Yes. People live there now. I'll never meet them.
Sorry.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It's a nice ending.
Brilliant. So it works. It works as a film.
We have a film.
Brilliant.
A pretty good film.
Yeah.
A pretty good film. You know, it's going to have some different colour palettes from The Colour Out of Space,
Yeah.
but you know, the characterization.
And it's a nice.
Works.
It's a nice kind of melding of early 20th century horror with classic witch mythology,
Folklore. Yeah.
folklore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Love it. I
I
like
love it. But again, no decisions made yet.
Oh, no. We still have to do the other one. See how that
Yes.
turns out.
So please do come back and join us for episode 9. Will that be?
I think it will. 9 whole episodes.
So we're almost up to double figures already.
4 whole years, 9 whole episodes. We're getting there.
So yeah, come back and join us next week for episode 9, when we will be looking how the witch fares in the 21st century with Nicolas Cage.
That's going to be interesting. And I'm sure very fun.
And yes, and don't forget, obviously, the competition, which is running until the end of the month. If you're a subscriber, subscribe to the channel, ping us your a contact email, and at the end of the month, we'll do a random draw for 5 copies of 2 of our books, either Verboten by Sidney Esmond or The Refugees from Daffodil Cottage, which is a children's novel by Ian Rudd. and we will see you next time. And don't forget, like, subscribe
Like, subscribe.
is very important. And we're done.
Ba 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 ba.